In this video, I'll be adding discourse to something I don't see talked about very much, David Lynch and monkeys. If you're watching this video, you're probably aware of the blue monkey at the end of Fire Walk With Me, who says very quietly, Judy. As an extension of my previous video, titled Gematria, I'm going to further elaborate on occult symbolism as it relates to Twin Peaks. In those ramblings, I talked about how the blue monkey is an analog of the blue ape of Thoth. It's sort of a messenger god based on Thoth himself, but like what you would expect a monkey to do, he messes up the messages, either in a game of broken telephone or as a trickster, sort of weaponized incompetence. According to Crowley, he's a representation of the fact that when you write something down, some of the meaning in that writing is lost, especially in the context of religious scripture. A good example of this is a preacher cherry-picking lines in the Bible to push a certain agenda, or a David Lynch audience member taking something too literally. The blue ape, which we will call Jack, because Lynch made a short film called What Did Jack Do?, appears in the Magus Tarot card, hidden in the background. There's 3 versions of this card: the body, which I think is Pierre, the astral, which I think is the monkey Jack himself, and the noetic, or intellectual, which I think is Alice Tremont's husband. The Magus card generally is a very powerful card. It sits at the direct path of Keter, which is, for the record, the White Lodge in Twin Peaks, and is also the light element in the show. It's basically God's light in this Tree of Life system. These cards in the Thoth deck were illustrated in a process called the Paris working, which is why Pierre is French, if not for the fact that the Magus, which by the way is just a fancy word for magician, was called the juggler, or la batelier in French. Sorry, Frenchies. Pierre, who gets the most screen time because he represents the visible body in the story, is literally a magician. And the card states that the magician can bend reality much like Pierre does in the story. His wand represents the opposite poles of electricity. The card is also ruled by the element of wind, or represents the element of wind. So electric wind, which we associate with that ceiling fan in that one scene, is very much about Pierre, even though he is off-screen. The card's number in Gematria is 2, the tarot number is 1, and the path number is 12 on the Tree of Life. His card's Hebrew letter is Beth, which Thelemites associate with the word house, and he is an ascendant deity because he is next to Keter, which is to say if you're on the way to leaving this world to eventually get to the White Lodge, you will likely interact with him or some version of the Magus, just like Laura Palmer literally, or in some other way through obscure metaphor, David Lynch style. Back to the monkey. I'm only saying he's astral because the monkey is implied to not really be in the main world of Twin Peaks. That's just my intuition. If you want to believe a talking monkey would work at a Packard Mail, be my guest. In What Did Jack Do?, they meet at a stop train station. I think this is David Lynch sort of stopping his train of thought to do some self-interrogation. Anything black and white is understood to exist in a higher plane of existence with Lynch, as in the higher parts of the Tree of Life don't have any color. There's this saying, as above, so below, which is a theme in Twin Peaks, where actions in this spiritual realm then repeat in other lower planes of existence. Additionally, the higher plane of existence is both the subconscious of the dreamer, aka the microcosm, as well as the macrocosm, aka the rest of the world. You can picture an acid head seeing the universe as just experiencing itself. It's sort of along those lines. That's why everything is seemingly connected in Twin Peaks. It's just one person experiencing it, or one anthropomorphized person, as we understand it through art. Color is just white light, so Keter, from the White Lodge refracted and illuminating darkness over time, which Lynch does not think is linear. I say this not to re-explain what you already know about David Lynch. I say this because these beliefs are similar to the system that ascribes to the tree of life, whether that is esotericism or thelema or other occult practices. It's just something to think about and how you should be looking at Twin Peaks, if not by any other way. But again, back to the monkey. The blue ape of Thoth is a Egyptian idea. Egyptians had these awesome puns and plays on words because scribes were probably as clever as rap artists are today. Modern Egyptologists can only speculate on these ideas, but you can imagine a lot of double entendre amongst scribes and other people that were literate at the time. In What Did Jack Do?, the monkey speaks in sort of a similar way. The monkey's lover, du temps t'es bon, phonetically in French is du temps t'es bon, which means killed early, quote unquote, in French. And of course, she was murdered. Killed early. All the other lines, I'll be frank, are really hard to figure out. There's a book by Crowley called The Book of Lies, which basically is nothing but occult riddles based on a similar premise. Every line is a riddle and an obscure reference that if you only knew 3 obscure references, you could piece together what the heck was going on in each line. It's a puzzle for you to solve on your own time. I'm not going to go through What Did Jack Do? I don't know it well enough to be an authority, but that is the general idea of this monkey, is all I'm trying to say. So when this monkey says Judy, what does he mean? Again, the monkey is a sort of failed messenger god who warps what is actually trying to be said or by God. Ironically, Lynch can't hear very well, the way the monkey can't speak very well. What occult words sound like Judy then, that could be misunderstood as Judy? Jaude, according to Gordon Cole, is how it is actually pronounced. But he can't hear really well, and seemingly the agents in the show are lying to each other from time to time, as if they are at odds. So the information we hear amongst them, Tammy, Gordon, and that forensics guy, can't really be trusted. What I propose is just as bizarre, because again, this can only be speculation. Mark Frost and Lynch have already said everything that they're going to say about the topic. And it's based on the assumption that Twin Peaks is just too spiritual a piece of work for Judy to just be this fake god that doesn't actually exist, anywhere on Wikipedia at least. That explanation, Jaude, and I mean this politely, and as a person who understands that we all just need to let things go and move on to more important things in our lives as well-adjusted adults, is for normies. Jaude is the normie answer. When a great magus transcends to godliness, they can explain God in one word. For Muhammad, it was Allah. For new Aeon, that is supposed to occur after the Aeon of Horus, the Aeon of Maat is Judy, or Ju-Uti. Ju, as in the Stele of Ju, is the basis for the Bornless ritual in the Golden Dawn, an occult order popularized by Crowley's legacy and sort of gobbled up in Thelema, and author of the Moonchild, which has a plot that mirrors Laura's creation of Part 8. Ju is actually pronounced you, which again is something a monkey would mess up when reading a message aloud from supposedly God or Keter or the White Lodge. Uti is the name of an Enochian realm called an Aether. It's a spiritual realm invoked by looking at a shoe stone, which is a flat rock that behaves much like a crystal ball. People used to treat TVs like this, like these shoe stones. And personally, I think anything Twin Perfect has to say about TV in his video that he's arguing Lynch is trying to push is just a comment on how the TV is actually just like a crystal ball, which much better fits Lynch's worldview in his themes and in his art and just his personality in general and what he knows and what he wants to tell the world. Anyway, there's 30th years, but Uti is a world that matches one that Cooper goes into in the last episode. I'll make a video on that. It's really cool. It's basically shot by shot though, which is pretty annoying to make, frankly. It matches Crowley's experience in that world, which is in a book called Visions and the Voices. If you're impatient, you can find that for free online. It's basically Crowley and the Knight of Pan, if you know what that means. If you read that book, you'd realize that you need an interpreter or a reader's guide to understand it. And all of those authors say Uti is actually an errorist translation from Crowley, and that it's actually Uta, U-T-A. So now we can say this monkey has sufficiently duped us with this incompetence that he has. He really is a crappy scribe, reading out his message incorrectly. Judy is actually U-Uti, or Ju-Uti, which is actually Ju-Uta, or U-Uta. If we take that word and apply gematria to it to find its collisions, we get 468 in Lynch's favorite gematria system, simple English gematria, which adds up to 9. So imagine the number 9 in the show being somehow linked to this Judy fiasco, by the way. Also that Beatles song. 468 matches insurance in Hebrew gematria. Dougie Jones worked in insurance. Just think that's interesting. And more interestingly, Ipsos, which is IPSOS, which is a metrical formula associated with the new aeon of, you guessed it, Matt, the aeon Jack Parsons prophesized to occur in relation to the atomic bomb, as I mentioned in my gematria video, which, if you haven't seen, basically the idea is the atomic age would bring about a new aeon of Matt via a Moonchild, that book that Aleister Crowley wrote, which, if crucified like Laura, or I guess Jesus, would start this new spiritual age, this aeon of Matt. Therefore, the blue ape saying Judy after the murder of Laura is like saying the new aeon of Matt has begun in the astral realm, which again, as above, so below. So that was the idea that Lynch was probably communicating, at least from where I'm sitting, and, you know, I'm reading the things that Lynch reads. But, you know, come up with your own conclusions. Not saying anyone's wrong, just saying I'm probably right. So with that quote-unquote solved, I think it's time for you to watch What Did Jack Do and try to figure out what they could be talking about in that. That's all from me. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.